New Zealand has the highest rate of domestic abuse per capita in the developed world. Abuse needs silence to thrive. In this series, Simonne Butler, herself the survivor of a vicious attack that nearly took her life, meets those brave enough to break their silence. These are their stories.
I haven't seen this photo for a long, long time. Was I look quite a happy kid? But I know I wasn't. Brings back memories of that household. I'm 54 years old now, up until my 40s, a perpetrator of domestic violence on multiple partners over the years. And a couple of children from one of those relationships were also dragged through the cycle. I call it a bit of a curse that I've put on my family. I would have protected my family with my life, my kids, from anybody else. Never, ever did I think to myself or look inwardly at myself and think that maybe my family needed protection from me and my behaviour.
To fully understand the dynamics of domestic abuse, it was crucial for Simonne to speak not only to victims, but also to a perpetrator.
Kia ora, Jeremy.
Yeah, kia ora, Simonne. Pleased to meet you.
Thank you.
So, with some trepidation, she visits Jeremy, a former abuser who now speaks openly about his past.
And the thing about the domestic violence is it starts at low-level stuff, so the verbal stuff. It starts off once every 2 months or once a month, once every 2 weeks, once a week, once every second night. Your family's walking around on eggshells. My household got like that fairly quickly.
In the beginning, Jeremy rationalised his behaviour.
The wankers were the guys that hit. I only raised my voice and stuff like that, so I'm okay as long as I'm not hitting anyone. That slowly started to change, offended in all sorts of ways.
But as he became more violent, he also became more adept at covering it up.
I've worked out that there was an element of calculation in everything that I was doing. Hits around the legs and torso where it was going to be covered up. My ex-wife, she never, ever went to work with a fat lip or a black eye. I had visits from police over the years, family members, all this sort of stuff, but I have no convictions or anything like that, so there was no consequences for my behaviour. And the thing is, the longer you're in this world, the better you get at it. You know exactly what to say to hurt the most, you know exactly what to do, you know how far to push before that phone call to the police gets made.
As his abuse escalated, Jeremy managed to hide it from his colleagues and even those closest to him.
I've seen him from the time I was 8 to growing up together, that I never knew that that's what happened behind closed doors with Jeremy. I had no idea.
Alinea is now Jeremy's partner. They got together a few years after he began to change.
Have you ever seen signs of the old Jeremy in your relationship?
For sure. When it first happened, not long after I first moved in here, and like I was saying, that's 8 years ago, and not long after Jeremy started on his journey, there would be instances where he'd fire up over small things, and at first I'm like, what the f***? I remember sitting on the floor right here one day in front of him and just saying, stop being so mean. Just because he would go into that survival mode, he'd ping, and he'd have to go for a walk and calm himself down.
Instead of lashing out, Jeremy's now learned to control his anger. But in the past, it was anger that controlled him.
By 45, I was pretty resigned to the fact that I was going to be a lonely old drunk, that I can't change. This is me, you just take me the way I am. If you can't handle the heat in my kitchen, then piss off. And they kept pissing off,
But by chance, Jeremy went along to support a friend at an anger management course. While there, he realised that it wasn't just his friend who desperately needed help.
When you're in this world, you live in a world of minimisation and denial. And part of my minimisation was that I wasn't as bad as this guy.
But doing the course turned his view of himself on its head.
Made me realise that what I was doing was fairly far removed from normal. So I did the course 20 weeks and then I did another 20 weeks because it was particularly around the psychological abuse. Slowly started to realise that everything pretty much that I thought what it was to be a man, a father and a partner was bullshit, was lies.
Do you really know where that anger came from that you directed at your partners?
I started to get turned as a kid, and so I was subjected to a lot of verbal and physical abuse right up until a teenager, where to get away from that environment, went to boarding school. There was a particular incident at boarding school of a sexual nature that wasn't dealt with. And from then was where I lost trust of big people. It's not what happens to you on the outside, it's what it does to you on the inside. And if you don't, like I said, I didn't know what isolation was, I didn't know what rejection was, I didn't, all that type of stuff, and that's the stuff that slowly builds up and it normally manifests itself in violence. And left that place pretty mixed up, angry, revengeful, with my beliefs and my value system well instilled in me that if you want to get anything in life, you yell and scream to start off with, and if that doesn't work, then use your fists.
These days, Jeremy gives public talks to at-risk men, using his past as a cautionary tale.
Every domestic violence incident has the chance that it could turn into a homicide. Just with a too hard a push, a too hard a one punch one night. And that's only through good luck and not good management by me did I not ever add to those statistics.
What was it that saved Jeremy from descending down that path? It was a flash of self-awareness he had while attending the anger management course.
Asked to do a role play, and it was an abusive partner. And I dropped into that role so very easily because that's the person I'd been for a long time. But the person that I was role-playing with was the female facilitator, quite an old lady. Was yelling and screaming at her, made her make eye contact with me by touching her chin, and she said, "Stop, you're scaring me." And then I could see tears in her eyes. And something clicked in my head. And it was, over the years, my kids when I was yelling and screaming at them and standing over them and all that, they'd go every once in a while, "Dad, stop, you're scaring me." And I'd be like, "Don't be so stupid. I've never hurt you," like. And I looked at this woman, and something just flooded over me, and I'd done something that I hadn't done since I was a kid, and I just burst into tears, and I couldn't stop. But then she just sat down with me. And then she asked me a question that no one had ever asked me in my life. Those policemen over the years, my mates, the few that knew what I was up to and stuff like that, no one had ever asked me. And she said, "What makes you tick, Jeremy? Why are you so angry all the time? Just tell me your story." So I sat there and I told her about my childhood and what I'd been doing, and right up through boarding school and stuff like that, And she didn't interrupt me, she didn't butt in. She just listened, and at the end of it, all she said was, "Well, now we've got something to work with, eh?"